It's honestly been a wild day. I mean, we have a leak here. Apparently, Mappa is making its first ever isekai anime. Then we have the Chainsaw Man trailer that's going to be coming in less than like 12 hours from now, which is, as we know, going to make the internet explode. And then we have stuff about RightStuf being basically acquired by Crunchyroll, as we can see here, articles and stuff about that. And then also talking about basically this means Sony now owns RightStuf. Then we have stuff with, Crunchyroll, since they technically own RightStuf and all that, they now kind of own Gundam as well. They own a good portion of it. So there's just a lot. There is a lot to talk about. And so before I get into the obvious big thing that is like, the Crunchyroll acquisition of, RightStuf, let's talk about the Mappa stuff briefly. So for one, our first ever isekai anime apparently from Mappa, the studio, and obviously at this point we don't know when it's coming, the release date, etc., but if we had to take an educated guess, we could assume it's probably 2023. Next year is when it's probably going to come out. Maybe later, who knows, but we could assume 2023 just judging by how these announcements usually work. Now, I don't know much about the series, Campfire Cooking Another World with my absurd skill. I have no idea or anything about the series. This is the first time, basically, I have ever seen this series. So, I know next to nothing about it, and as you know, I do like myself some good isekai trash, and it's probably going to be something that I'm definitely going to watch and enjoy. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Then we obviously have, the stuff with Chainsaw Man's trailer in less than 24 hours or 12 hours technically from now. I mean, I'll probably be waking up in the morning to the Chainsaw Man trailer, and I'm excited. I probably will do a live reaction to the trailer. I think that's what I'm probably going to do, because I think everybody would like to see my reaction, maybe, to how I feel about the trailer overall. So yeah, if you guys want me to actually do a live reaction to the trailer, do let me know in the comments below. I am very curious. But okay, with that little stuff out of the way, let's, I guess, talk about the big stuff, which is the RightStuf being acquired by Crunchyroll, which by extension means Nozomi Entertainment. There's a lot to go through. So, RightStuf. RightStuf is a pretty big company. Like, they're not the biggest company of all time, but at least when it comes to, let's say, merchandise or anime, manga, etc., they are pretty big. Like, people go to RightStuf to buy figures, buy merchandise, etc. It's a huge deal. I have even used RightStuf to buy stuff. It's the truth. And so, regardless of how you feel about them or whatever, it's a pretty big deal that Crunchyroll apparently has bought RightStuf. Now, what this also means, if Crunchyroll technically has got RightStuf, it technically means Sony owns RightStuf. And to kind of get everybody up to speed, Sony recently, they acquired Crunchyroll from AT&T, and they also had Funimation as well. And so recently, which I've made many videos on it, Crunchyroll and Funimation have merged. And as I've talked about myself, Funimation has legitimately, at this point in time, it's effectively died. It's still around, but pretty much a few years from now, Funimation's probably as a name or as a company, etc., is eventually just going to cease to exist. And it's going to be mainly just Crunchyroll entirely, since all of the catalog from Funimation has been added to Crunchyroll. And so, once again, this does seem like good news. Like, at first glance, when you see this type of stuff, it seems like good news. You don't have to pay as many subscriptions for anime, and I think that anyone could agree in terms of legal ways to obtain anime, Crunchyroll is definitely one of the better options. Besides maybe High Dive, etc., I think that Crunchyroll is definitely one of the best. I'm not a sponsor, want to make sure I say that, but I'm being realistic here. And the point I'm trying to make is that obviously Funimation and Crunchyroll combining their catalog, that's a big deal. That's a lot of shows. That's a lot of anime. And so, at least for the consumer, it's definitely a good thing that kind of happened. However, as I've talked about, Sony is a big deal here. There's a lot of people that talk about Sony continuously, and everybody knows this, everybody's been talking about it. Sony loves to censor things. They censor, for instance, games, and we've seen some elements of them trying to censor manga and anime. I mean, we recently had the stuff with Square Enix with the whole app, the Manga Up app, which was just, oh my goodness, probably one of the worst things I've ever seen. And the fact is that it's entirely possible, as Sony continues to collect all of these different companies, we're going to see a lot more censorship, because at this point in time, when you really look at this acquisition, okay, they now have Funimation and Crunchyroll, basically the two biggest anime providers, at least in the West. And then they now have acquired RightStuf, which basically gives you the merchandise, like anime, manga, etc., figurines. And so they now have these different elements and forms of anime and manga that they own. And so we can kind of at this point and say that Sony is the Disney of anime and manga right now. Like how Disney has bought out so many other companies, so many massive other companies, etc. Sony's basically done that, but in anime form. And this is scary for a few reasons. For one, the lack of competitors. We obviously do have Netflix, we do have Disney Plus, and we do have, Amazon, High Dive, etc. Yes, those are out there. But as I've said, and many have said already many times, when it comes to, let's say, how Netflix handles things, how it comes to Disney Plus and how it handles things, it's not necessarily good in terms of how they do their services for anime fans. And so, in terms of competition, Crunchyroll slash Sony don't really have much of a competition, besides, let's say, High Dive and Amazon and Hulu to a certain extent. It's not really that much. And so, because of how lack of a competition there is, I feel like Crunchyroll is probably not going to have to, really try to better itself and try to have a better system or a better website to navigate. And I think the website's good to navigate right now, but it's definitely not perfect. There's a lot of areas that it could definitely be improved upon. And that's the whole point of competition with these different companies, is that it makes companies have to think outside the box to improve themselves. And if there is a lack of competition because a company has basically bought everything, it leads to problems. So that is something I just do want to mention, that in the grand scheme of things, right now it seems like it's okay, but down the line, not even just censorship from Sony, it can lead to some laziness because they have no one to really compete with. It's like the YouTube situation, and yes, I know, I use YouTube as well, I use it all the time, but the thing is about YouTube is that there is no competitor to YouTube. There isn't. Let's be honest, there isn't. And because of that, YouTube doesn't really need to innovate. It doesn't need to really do everything 100% right because nobody can compete with it. It's too massive. And that's what I'm trying to point out here. But, yeah, it's a very interesting set of news. I'm not entirely against it, obviously, but I do think that it's scary depending on how the future goes. That is just definitely something that needs to be kept in mind. I mean, we've seen it with companies in the past. Disney. Disney owns so much now. It's ridiculous how much Disney owns. And so Sony's kind of like collecting the Infinity Stones for anime itself. So yeah, just wanted to bring this up, talk about it. And by this as well, Nozomi, Entertainment apparently being technically acquired by Crunchyroll as well, which means like the rights, etc. for Gundam and all that. It's fascinating. I don't know too much about this part, I'm going to be honest with you, but it's just, yeah, there's a lot to take away, but I guess I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do leave me a like. It does help me out a lot, and I would, greatly appreciate it. And also, I'll see you guys in the morning for a potential live reaction to the Chainsaw Man trailer. But with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.